My child, here's something most people don't tell you straight up. A lot of men don't say what they feel. They don't sit you down, pour their heart out, or spell things out clearly. That's just not how many of them are wired. Instead, their emotions move quietly, almost undercover. And that's exactly why emotional attachment in men gets misunderstood all the time. People expect love to look obvious, big gestures, clear confessions, constant reassurance. But with men, especially emotionally guarded ones, attachment doesn't come in loud. It comes in subtle, low-key, almost sneaky. And if you're only looking for surface-level proof, you'll miss what's actually happening. Here's the first truth you need to lock in. When a man becomes emotionally attached, the shift happens inside him long before it shows on the outside. His inner world changes first. His thoughts rearrange. His emotional gravity shifts. Even if his behavior looks the same, or even colder, something inside him has already moved toward you. You might feel confused by him. One minute he's present, the next he's distant. One day he's warm, the next he's hard to read. That doesn't automatically mean he doesn't care. A lot of the time, it means he cares more than he's comfortable admitting, even to himself. Most men grow up learning that emotions equal weakness. Vulnerability feels risky. Catching feelings feels like losing control. So when attachment starts creeping in, his first instinct usually isn't to open up. It's to protect himself. He puts walls up. He goes quiet. He pulls back just enough to feel safe again. That's why emotionally attached men can look distant on the surface. But distance doesn't always mean disinterest. Sometimes it means the exact opposite. Sometimes it means he's trying to manage feelings that feel bigger than he expected. Here's the core idea everything else builds on. When a man is emotionally attached, he can't fully detach from you. Even when he tries, he might step back. He might go silent. He might tell himself he's fine without you. But emotionally, he stays connected. You live in his head more than you realize, in his reactions, in his emotional patterns, in the way he responds to your presence or your absence. The connection doesn't scream. It whispers. It shows up in pauses, in unfinished conversations, in moments where he almost reaches out, then doesn't. An emotionally attached man doesn't disappear cleanly. If he pulls away, it's rarely final on an emotional level. He might stop talking for a while. He might focus on work, distractions, or keeping busy. But something always tugs at him. Maybe he checks in just to see how you're doing. Maybe he sends a random message that feels casual but isn't. Maybe he watches from a distance without engaging. Those moments aren't accidents. They're signs of a bond that hasn't been resolved. And here's something important, my child. Silence does not equal disconnection. For emotionally attached men, silence is often a coping mechanism, a way to breathe, a way to feel in control again. But control and attachment don't work the same way. The bond stays. Even when he's quiet, something is still happening underneath. In next part, I'll break down how his emotions react to your energy, even when he pretends nothing affects him, and why your distance can hit him harder than words ever could. My child, here's where things get even clearer. When a man is emotionally attached, your energy reaches him whether he admits it or not, even when he's acting cool, even when he's pretending he's unbothered, even when he swears he's fine. Deep down, your emotional state still touches him. If you pull back, something tightens inside him. If you're warm, he relaxes without realizing why. If you grow distant, he feels unsettled, even if he can't explain it. That's not coincidence. That's emotional resonance. Emotionally attached men don't always talk about feelings, but they feel them in their body first. Restlessness, mood shifts, that low-key tension that shows up out of nowhere. He might blame work, stress, life. But the truth is, when you matter to someone emotionally, your emotional climate influences theirs. That's just human nature. This isn't about control. It's not obsession. And it's definitely not weakness. It's connection. Because of this inner pull, emotionally attached men often behave in ways that feel confusing as hell. One day he's open, warm, and present. The next day he feels distant or unsure. From the outside, it looks inconsistent. From the inside, it's self-protection. Caring deeply brings fear with it. Fear of loss, fear of messing it up, fear of not being enough. Pulling back becomes his way of managing those fears. It's not that he stops caring. It's that caring starts to feel risky. And here's something people miss all the time. Even when he's quiet, he's still paying attention. Emotionally attached men often watch more than they engage. They notice changes in your tone. They sense shifts in your mood. They pick up on things you didn't say out loud. They remember details you forgot you even shared. Attachment sharpens awareness. He may not react immediately. He may not say anything. But inside, he's tuned in. Another sign shows up in how he handles emotional distance. When you emotionally pull away, he feels it. Even if he doesn't chase, even if he doesn't ask what's wrong, something changes in him. He may go quieter. He may act a little off, or he may suddenly reappear after a stretch of silence. That reappearance isn't random. It's emotional gravity pulling him back. Now here's a key point. My child. Emotional attachment creates an imprint. Once a man feels emotionally safe, understood, or alive with someone, his system remembers it. That's why even when he tries to move on, new connections often don't hit the same. He may date, he may talk to other people, he may stay busy, but emotionally, something feels off. Conversations feel flatter, connections feel lighter, not because others aren't good enough, but because attachment sets a baseline for emotional depth. That's why emotionally attached men often say, I don't know why I can't let go. It's not logic. It's not choice. It's emotional memory. And here's a quiet truth you need to hear. Sometimes men pull away not because they don't care, but because they care too much. Attachment triggers fears they've learned to avoid. Distance feels safer than vulnerability. You don't need to chase proof of this. You'll feel it in the emotional undercurrent, in the way the connection doesn't fully end, in the way he circles back, in the way silence still feels charged. In next part, I'll explain why emotionally attached men struggle so much with unfinished emotions, and why unresolved connections keep replaying in their mind long after everything goes quiet. My child, when emotional attachment takes root, it doesn't just sit quietly and behave itself. It starts asking questions inside him, especially when things end without real closure. And this is where emotionally attached men struggle the most, with emotional loose ends. An emotionally attached man has a hard time letting things end halfway. Conversations that stopped too soon stay with him. Moments that felt important but never got fully expressed replay in his mind. He thinks about what he almost said, what he should have said, what he wishes he handled differently. That inner replay is attachment working behind the scenes. Even when there is no contact, the emotional thread doesn't snap clean. It stretches. You might notice that unresolved tension affects him more than he admits. If things feel unfinished between you, he feels it too, even if he never brings it up. Emotional attachment creates a quiet need for emotional clarity. And for men who aren't comfortable with emotions, that need can feel heavy. This is why emotionally attached men often react strongly when they sense emotional distance. If you emotionally pull back, he may not confront it directly. Instead, his behavior shifts. He might get quieter. He might act distracted. Or he might suddenly pop back in after being gone for a while. That timing isn't random. Emotional attachment responds to emotional shifts, not logic or schedules. When something inside him feels like it's slipping, attachment pulls his attention back toward you. Here's where people get it twisted. Inconsistency doesn't automatically mean he doesn't care. A lot of the time, inconsistency means internal conflict. He wants closeness, but closeness feels dangerous. He wants connection, but connection makes him vulnerable. That push-pull isn't about you, it's about him trying to regulate emotions he doesn't fully understand. Emotionally attached men often manage this by keeping emotional intensity in check. They joke instead of opening up. They change the subject when things get deep. They downplay feelings to stay in control. That doesn't mean the feelings aren't real, it means they feel bigger than he knows how to handle. Another subtle sign? Memory. When a man is emotionally attached, he remembers things that matter to you, even small details, even things you casually mentioned. Emotional attachment ties information to feeling, and feelings stick. That's why months later, he may still remember something you forgot you ever shared. Now let's talk about moving on. When there's no attachment, moving on feels easy, clean, natural. But when there is attachment, moving on feels forced. He may try to distract himself with new people, new routines, or staying busy. But emotionally, it doesn't land the same. Conversations feel surface level. Connections feel thin. Something feels missing. This doesn't always mean he's consciously comparing people. Most of the time, it's subconscious. Emotional attachment sets a standard for emotional depth. Once you've felt something real, shallow connections become more noticeable. That's why emotionally attached men can seem restless even when life looks fine on the outside. You might also notice something strange about his timing. He reaches out at unexpected moments, late nights, after stressful days, during quiet moments when distractions drop. That's because emotional attachment connects to emotional states, not convenience. Many men don't have language for this. They feel attachment physically before they understand it mentally. It shows up as tension, nostalgia, heaviness, or emotional pull rather than clear thoughts. So instead of expressing it directly, it leaks out through behavior. And here's something important. My child, attachment doesn't equal readiness. A man can be emotionally attached and still unsure of what to do next. Emotional connection doesn't automatically come with emotional skill. In next part, I'll explain how emotional attachment starts shaping his future thinking, why you become a reference point in his mind, even when he tries to move forward. My child, once emotional attachment settles in, it doesn't just affect how a man feels in the moment. It starts shaping how he thinks about the future. This is where attachment gets quieter, deeper, and harder to ignore. At this stage, you don't just exist in his memories. You become a reference point in his inner world. Even when he tries to move on, his emotional system still checks in with what he felt with you. New connections don't feel the same, not because they're bad, but because emotional attachment leaves an imprint. His nervous system remembers safety, depth, or emotional aliveness. And once that imprint exists, it changes the way he experiences connection going forward. You might notice that he reacts to you differently than he reacts to others. His tone shifts, his patience changes, his emotional responses feel more personal. That's because emotional attachment creates emotional specificity. You're not just another person in his life. You occupy a distinct emotional space. Emotionally attached men also tend to struggle with emotional finality. Clean endings feel unnatural, even when he agrees to move on. Something inside him resists closure, not because he wants drama or confusion, but because emotional bonds don't follow logic. They fade slowly, if they fade at all. This is why reconnections can feel oddly natural. Even after long silence, conversations may pick up with familiar emotional rhythm. The ease returns quickly. The emotional tone clicks back into place. That's attachment remembering its own language. At the same time, emotional attachment can trigger fear of responsibility, presence, or emotional availability. If he's unsure he can show up the way he thinks you deserve, he may pull back. Distance, in this case, isn't rejection, it's self-doubt. Many emotionally attached men worry about disappointing the person they care about. They fear being needed when they don't feel ready. That fear doesn't cancel attachment, it complicates it. Another subtle sign shows up in his imagination. Without trying, you appear in his future thoughts. Plans, ideas, or possibilities include you naturally, even if he doesn't act on them. Emotional attachment integrates someone into your sense of continuity. The mind does this automatically when a connection matters. You may also notice unresolved emotions surfacing in him: guilt, regret, longing, or confusion. These feelings don't always lead to action, but they linger. They're signs of emotional depth trying to find expression. Emotionally attached men often become more respectful of boundaries, not less. He may hold back rather than push. He may choose restraint over intensity, not because he doesn't want closeness, but because he values the connection enough not to damage it. This is where many people misread silence. They assume no communication means no feeling, but emotional attachment doesn't disappear just because words stop. It continues quietly, in awareness, in emotional reactions, in the difficulty of letting go. What matters most is pattern, not moments. Emotional attachment shows consistency beneath inconsistency. Even when behavior fluctuates, the emotional thread remains. As time passes, attachment asks for resolution, not necessarily a relationship, but emotional honesty. When ignored, it creates inner tension. When acknowledged, even silently, it brings calm. Here's the grounding truth, my child. Emotional attachment doesn't rush, and it doesn't beg. It simply exists. And when it exists, it leaves traces everywhere, even in absence. In the final part, I'll reveal what emotional attachment looks like at its deepest level, and why quiet feelings often last longer than loud ones. My child, when emotional attachment reaches its deepest layer, it stops being loud. It stops pushing. It stops demanding answers. At this stage, attachment becomes presence rather than action. The connection lives quietly inside a man, shaping how he remembers, how he feels, and how he understands emotional closeness itself. An emotionally attached man at this point may not reach out. He may not make a move, but the attachment still exists. Instead of fighting it, he accepts it internally. Even if he never names it out loud, the resistance softens. The emotional struggle fades. What remains is a quiet knowing. This person mattered. This is where attachment becomes steady instead of intense. No chaos, no emotional roller coaster. Just a grounded awareness that something meaningful once touched his inner world. Life continues, but that emotional truth stays intact. You might notice that his respect for you deepens over time. He doesn't speak badly about you. He doesn't dismiss what you shared. Even in silence, there's care in how he holds the memory of you. Emotional attachment creates emotional integrity. It changes how a man carries himself in relation to someone who impacted him deeply. At this stage, attachment often shows up as restraint. He avoids blurring boundaries. He chooses distance over confusion, not because he feels nothing, but because he feels enough to protect what once mattered. That restraint isn't coldness, it's emotional weight. Here's something many people don't realize. The absence of noise does not mean the absence of feeling. Quiet feelings are still real, and sometimes they're the most lasting. Emotionally attached men process emotions slowly, long after others have moved on. He may still feel emotional echoes, not pain necessarily, just awareness. Emotional attachment doesn't always hurt. Sometimes it exists as depth that never found a place to land. You may also notice that he carries lessons from the connection forward. He becomes more emotionally aware, more careful, more intentional. Even if the connection never resumes, it changed him. And that's one of the clearest signs the attachment was real. This kind of attachment doesn't rely on constant contact. It doesn't need messages, validation, or reassurance to survive. It's sustained by emotional memory. That's why even long gaps don't erase it completely. Time reshapes how it feels, but not the fact that it existed. Another quiet truth is that emotionally attached men often wish you well from afar, not through words, not through gestures, but internally. Your happiness still matters to him, even if he's no longer part of your life. That's emotional maturity growing out of attachment. At this deepest layer, attachment is no longer about wanting something from you. It's about honoring what was meaningful. That acknowledgement brings peace, not closure, but acceptance. Understanding this helps you stop filling silence with self-doubt. Emotional attachment doesn't always show up the way people expect, but when it's real, it leaves a lasting emotional signature. Here's the final truth. My child, a man can leave physically, step back emotionally, and still never fully disconnect inside. That quiet continuity is what makes emotional attachment so powerful and so misunderstood. If this series resonated with you, you can comment something simple like, "This explains a lot." Sometimes understanding is the real closure.